Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. And today we're going to talk about math and Pokemon Legends Arceus. Pokemon is a franchise that is one, super lucrative, it's a multi-billion franchise. Two, it's fun, hence the fact that it's pretty lucrative. And three, it is entrenched in math. That's how we're able to have the fun. Everything is organized in a certain way. They have a certain formula, and there's math at the forefront and behind the scenes. And in this video, I want to focus in not only on Pokemon as a whole, but on Pokemon Legends Arceus and what they add to the formula, so to speak, right? Because they have a base, and then they added a bunch of things, so they have their formula, how they, situate their game. And I look forward to talking about that, as well as my experience with the game. And yeah, it's gonna be fun, and we're gonna talk about the gameplay, the world, all that good stuff, and how math plays a role in all of it, as well as things on a more meta level, like what goes on behind the scenes to get a game like that going, as well as other things, and how there's math and all of that. So yeah, I look forward to it, and yeah, there are definitely gonna be spoilers ahead. So if you want to go and play Pokemon Legends Arceus and you want to do it spoiler free, this is not the video for you. But if you don't care about spoilers or you've already played the game, check it out. And please feel free to add to the conversation. Please feel free to tell me about your experience with Pokemon Legends Arceus or Pokemon in general. Talk to me. Let's have a conversation. With that in mind, spoilers ahead. Let's do this. And again, spoilers ahead. All right, so here we go. So with Pokemon, right, if we look at the core gameplay, it is very mathematical in nature. Even if we're not consciously paying attention to things, the math is there, and we're doing it ourselves. The game is doing it too. And so let's talk about that for a second. With that core gameplay, right, you travel around the world, going to location to location. You're usually trying to stop some sort of evil team. And you're collecting Pokemon along the way to fulfill the Pokedex and be a Pokemon master, all that good stuff. Now, right off the bat, in each main series, right, like there is a certain number of Pokemon per game, right? And there's already math in that. And then you can have up to 6 Pokemon on your team. There's math in that. The ones that aren't on your team can be released, or they can be stored in they can be stored in a PC. Sorry about that. And typically, how most of those main games work is they have a limited number of boxes that you can store a Pokemon in, and then a limited number of Pokemon per box, and that's the idea. So there's just very much math in that basic level, right? But then when you dive deeper, each Pokemon that you collect, they have their own individual levels, and you can kind of think of that as the stats that they were born with, and there's math in that. And they can raise their effort values, which is kind of like, hey, once you have their natural born stats, what can you do to make them even stronger, even better, even faster? And there are different ways to do that with each generation. And as time has gone on, this math, in both the cases of individual values and effort values, in some cases they've gone by different names, but the idea is, whereas in the past, they were more behind the scenes math. These days, they're more on the surface, which I appreciate, because this whole time we've been doing math on the surface, but also there's been a lot of math going on behind the scenes. And I think if you make that more visible, if you let people know, hey, this is actually also going on, it's useful. With that in mind, let's talk about stats for a second, right? Because there's math in this very basic idea. Because each Pokemon has HP. They have, speed. They have attack, defense, special attack, and special defense, right? And these all have numerical values that can increase through different methods. Sometimes you could use vitamins to increase them. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, you're using different things like dust or pebbles and stuff like that. It makes sense in the game. So with that in mind, I think it's really cool that we've gotten to a point in Pokemon where they're making some of that stuff more clear. And so, in terms of the stats, right? Not only are they increasing through items, they're increasing through your levels, and and you have numerical values for those levels going up to level 100. And the experience that you get, right, is kept track of numerically, and with each with each level, right, you have a certain amount of experience points that you have to get to move up to that level. And yeah, so there's math and all of that. And when you're in your actual battle, right, all these things actually do matter, right? Because you want to like outclass your opponent. And things like speed, they're useful in terms of getting priority, getting priority for that first strike, right, or multiple strikes. And I think that's cool. And they also help with evasion, all that good stuff. And even though we don't get into it stat wise, you do talk about accuracy in terms of move, and that's pretty cool too. So let's talk about moves. So each Pokemon can do up to 4 moves, right? And you can get additional moves by leveling up. You can get additional moves by like TMs and HMs in most games. It's a little different in Pokemon Legends Arceus, and we'll get to that. And I look forward to that part too, because they do something cool where it's like, hey, you made a solid advancement. There's no turning back. All right. But yeah, so moves are cool. And here's the other thing, right? Like, in addition to having these moves and having 4, and like you can learn more and just keep 4 going at a time, there's this idea that each Pokemon has a type, right? And with types, basically you have this complicated or not complicated, depending on how you view it, game of rock, paper, scissors. It's all about perception. But suffice it to say, you have this rock, paper, scissors style dynamic between types, with the idea being some types, if they are strong against another type, they can do double damage against that type. And in some other cases, you might have a type that's weak against another type, in which case they will do half damage and have the other person do double damage on them. And going back to if they're strong against a type, I want to take that in a different direction. So if your Pokemon has the same type as the type of attack that hits it, that attack will do half damage. So you have these ideas of what damage is going to do, and it also plays a role with your stats, right? There's calculations going on behind the scenes that attribute to that and give you a better idea of things too. But just visually speaking, you can have a good idea of what's going to go on, and that can be distributed. No, God, it's that kind of day. But you can kind of see what's going on, by what's going on with your health, right? Which is also kept track of numerically, but also through a health bar as a visual representation of what's going on too. And so I think all that's pretty cool. And then you have the idea of stab damage, right? Same type attack bonus, right? And so that allows you to do double damage if your Pokemon is using a move where it's the same type as they are, which is cool, right? So instead of just doing double damage against a type that is weak against the type of move that you're using, you would do 4 times that damage if your Pokemon is the same type as the moves. Like, for instance, if I have a fire Pokemon and it's using a fire type move on a grass Pokemon, it is doing 4 times that damage, and that is devastating. And over the course of Pokemon, occasionally or pretty regularly after a certain point, items could be attached to a Pokemon, where they can hold them. But even if you don't deal with held items, there are items that you are storing in your bag that can help a Pokemon out in battle, right? You have things like potions, whether they be regular potions, super potions, max potions, etc. You have your status healing sort of deals. And for capturing Pokemon, you have Pokeballs, and in each of these cases, you can store a set amount, and it will vary from game to game. But for a long time, 99 of each item, and maybe only a certain amount of items in each bag. And then over time, you also get key items, and that has evolved. But the idea is just to get around and function in Pokemon games. There's a lot of math going on, whether you acknowledge it or not, right? And this leads me into talking about Pokemon Legends Arceus, because I feel like that covers most of what I want to do. Oh wait, before we get into that, there is the idea of status elements, right? Like you can be paralyzed, you could be confused, all that good stuff. You could be poisoned, and there's math and all that and how it works, right? If you're paralyzed, you could lose a turn, and that can give your opponent an extra chance to strike. If you're poisoned, you will gradually lose health, right? You could also be put to sleep and lose a turn as well. If you're confused, you could do damage to yourself. And in all these cases, right, there's math involved in how all those function and operate. At the end of the day, Pokemon is an RPG and a JRPG, and it has a lot of like trappings and tropes that a lot of other JRPGs have, right? There's a reason why these things function the way they do, right? There's a certain level of success that comes with that sort of formula. And Pokemon has its own specific formula based off of that, and it works really well. And with Pokemon Legends Arceus, it keeps that formula to an extent and it expands it. And this is the part where I talk about this more, and I'm definitely going to get into spoilers, but I will try to keep that to a minimum. All right. So, like I said in the beginning, spoilers ahead. Let's get into it. So, with Pokemon Legends Arceus, it keeps the core Pokemon battle mechanics intact in the sense that it is a turn-based system. You're going back and forth against your opponent. You all have stats. You all have different moves. Some of these moves can, inflict status changes. Some of these moves will do double damage depending on type. Some will do half, and in some cases, maybe none. And it goes both ways, right? And I think that's pretty cool. And so at its core, Pokemon Legends Arceus handles that, right? And for a long time, you get experience through battle, and it's pretty much been battle alone. But in Pokemon Legend Arceus, you get experience through capturing your Pokemon. You get experience through doing quests and doing different events and doing different things throughout the game. So that could all add to your Pokemon leveling up. And one of the other things is, like, at the end of the day, you will level grind, but it's not anywhere nearly as painful as it was, like, in, let's say, older generations. Because in older generations, the idea was like whatever Pokemon was out in battle is the one that gets the experience. And if you wanted to switch out a Pokemon, then they both get experience. So it's like whichever Pokemon is participating, it gets that experience. And if I'm not mistaken, they kind of split that experience. That has changed over time. In some cases, you get an item like share experience, and you have to do whatever you need to do to get that in certain games, and that still breaks things up. Over the course of Pokemon history, I think things have gotten way better with that. And in Pokemon Legends Arceus, it's just a thing that happens, right? Like your Pokemon are getting experience. You might have a Pokemon that is out in battle that is getting more experience because they're the one battling, or the experience might be more beneficial if they're like lower level or something like that. But the idea is they are still getting experience points. It's just like you can get that in better ways to me. So like you might level grind because you want your Pokemon to be stronger, but it is less of a pain and it counts for everyone that's in your current party, and that's cool. And the other idea is like you're battling and you're building that up. You're capturing Pokemon. Here, like sorry, in the past when you capture a Pokemon, it was only through battle. There's a couple exceptions like in certain Pokemon main games where you can capture them without it, and Pokemon Legends Arceus builds off of that, and I think refines the way you do that. So you can capture a Pokemon if you throw a Pokeball at it, whatever type of ball you have, and certain Pokeballs will have better chances of catching it. So there's math in that too. And you can do a little better if you sneak up on a Pokemon, right? And if you want to, you could also battle that Pokemon. And you could do that by throwing the Pokemon out into the field and throwing them at the opponent. And here's the thing, with Pokemon Legends Arceus, the Pokemon will come at you. So sometimes you might get an aggressive Pokemon and they come at you, and you gotta decide what you want to do. And whereas in previous Pokemon games, you could lose a battle, like say you have 6 Pokemon, right? Like you could lose that battle and you would black out and pretty much have to start over. Here, your character takes damage in addition to the Pokemon. So even if you lose all your Pokemon, you still have a chance to walk away. And then you could rejoin that fight almost right away if you have like revives or max revives or things like that, right? And when you're going through, you could get real caught up with like being in the open world, and so you have to do a lot of resource management, and there's math in that, right? Because you want to have a certain amount of pokeballs, great balls, heavy balls, ultra balls, etc. And they all have different things to them, different layers to them. Like you might have ones that are better at catching heavy Pokemon, like the heavy ball, but ones where they're like the feather ball, and they're good at catching Pokemon that are nimble or Pokemon that fly. And with each of these Pokeballs, they still have a better chance of catching a Pokemon than the regular Pokeball. And then there's like layers to those particular types of balls. Like they branch off to their own line. Like the Pokeball branches off into its own line, like Pokeball, Great Ball, Ultra Ball, etc. But not only are you keeping track of that, but you're keeping track of your healing items, right? You want to have a certain number. You want to have a certain number of healing items that manage your status, but also like that heal your HP. It's good to have revives and max revives, and you only have a certain amount of space in your item bag, so you have to choose carefully what you want to do with things. And you could also craft in this game, so there's a lot of math in that. You're building up resources, and you want to make sure you're paying attention to that, because you're building up items and you're taking up space in your regular bag. But if you're crafting, you're using those resources and refining them and creating better items. You also have a mission system in this game, right? And each of those missions is numbered. And not only are you getting experience for doing whatever you're doing in that mission, you might get certain items, and you might get a certain amount of those items. And there's a lot of math and all that, and how they function. Now, one of the things that is big in the game, and this is the part where, like I said before, there's a lot of sorry, there will be spoilers, so I'm gonna go into that. Now in the game, like you literally fall out of the sky through a space-time distortion. If you play the game, you know what happens with that. But the idea is so that hole is open pretty much all the game until you fix that, and a lot of wonky stuff happens, like space-time distortions can happen, and there's a lot of math for how those flow and function. And then if you're going to go into one of those distortions, it's like you got to play a little game. And here's what I mean by that. On one hand, you're going into the space-time distortions, and you're coming across these powerful Pokemon. Some of them may be alpha Pokemon, which are like Pokemon of their species, but they have better stats. They're bigger. They might have different moves. So there's something to be said about that. And there's other Pokemon that are coming there too. And no matter whether they're alpha or not, a lot of the Pokemon in those distortions are higher level. And so you need to figure out what you want to do with that. Because on one hand, if you go in and you have enough Pokeballs or variations of the Pokeballs, and you have enough healing items, and you have high enough Pokemon, you could really clean up, and you can get higher level Pokemon that you might not be able to find other places. You might find a bunch of alphas, and if you're playing it right, you can clean up. Seriously, it's awesome. But there's a caveat with that, right? These Pokemon are exceptionally powerful, so if you're not careful, they will wipe you out. And in which case, if somehow you find yourself in that position, you can leave the distortion, heal your Pokemon, go back into it while it's around, because it has a time limit. The space-time distortion has a time limit, right? It will fade after time. Like, it takes a while to build up. It'll be around for a while, and then it will fade away. And, there's math in that too, right? So it's all pretty cool. And, so you progress the story, and you're building up, your credibility, wowing everyone. You're catching a bunch of Pokemon. You're trying to get all the Pokemon in the region. That region has a set amount of Pokemon. And since we're in the past in this game, not only are Pokeballs new, but the Pokedex is new. So when you capture a Pokemon, it's not enough to just capture them to get their Pokedex page. You have to do certain tasks. You have to encounter enough of them in battle, or use them enough in battle to start to get stuff out there for your Pokedex page. And then you want to do certain tasks. Like you might want to capture a certain amount of them, defeat a certain amount of them. You might want to use a certain move on them, or have them use that move on you. And when you're capturing them, you might have to capture a certain amount. And some of those times you might have to capture a certain amount without being spotted. And all of it adds up to you getting more experience, filling out the Pokedex pages, and periodically you actually fill out lab reports, and those lab reports they're dependent on what you're catching and what research tasks you're fulfilling, and you get more money the more Pokemon you catch, the more things that you do to deal with those research tasks. And then here's the other thing: you get experience for submitting those so there's research tasks, right, and reporting, and for that experience, it's building up your rank. And as you build up your rank, you can get up to 10 stars, and each rank gives you something extra. Like sometimes, it's as simple as allowing you to get more money for completing lab reports. In some other cases, for like a lot of the beginning levels, it was allowing Pokemon up to a certain level to obey you. Like for instance, there's like one point where it's like, hey, okay, Pokemon up to level 30 will obey you. Pokemon up to level 65 will obey you. All Pokemon of all levels will obey you. Like once you capture them. And so there's a lot of math in all of that. All in all, Pokemon Legends Arceus is a good game. It takes the basics of the Pokemon formula and it does something new with it. It does something new, different with it, right? You get this open world experience. You get to have fun just running around capturing Pokemon and battle them, and you have to be on your toes because they will come at you. Pokemon are, when we say wild Pokemon, here we really mean it. They will come at you. And one of the other cool things, and it's a good example of using math to show some things and demonstrate how powerful something is the idea of the noble Pokemons when they get frenzied throughout the game, right? They are pumped up. They're bigger. They have this energy around them, this light. And when you have to calm them, it comes in stages, right? Because they have their whole health bar, and you can see how much health they have, which is this large amount. So that gives you an idea of how powerful they are. They can do a lot of damage to your Pokemon in you because they are doing attacks. So the idea is you're throwing bombs at them, and you have an infinite supply of that, but you could keep track of how many you're throwing if you wanted to, by counting them. But the idea is even with that idea of you having an infinite amount, right? There's math in that. And once you throw enough at them and you see their health ticking away, you have an opportunity, and the screen will let you know. You have an opportunity to send out a Pokemon and battle them. And then all the other stuff comes into play too. So there's a lot of math in those battles and how they work and what they do for the story as well, right? Because the story, even though it's this open world story, even though you have a bunch of side quests and regular quests, the idea is it comes together in a cohesive way. That's all been calculated, right? That's all been designed. And the same goes for the music, right? There's math in that music, how it functions, how it gets to you, how it might make you feel in battle. There's math in not only that music and that story and how they all function and flow. There's math in how that world gets to you and how it's delivered piece-wise, right? Or piecemeal-wise, or however you want to say it. There's math in that. There's math in the text and how fast that moves, right? And you can adjust those settings, and just there's math in the settings in general, right? Because you could decide how fast this is moving or that is moving, and in some cases, what you see, and that's all pretty cool. And then you got to figure there's a lot of math behind the scenes, right? There's a lot of math in the time that it took to make the game. There's a lot of math in the programming and the marketing, how much it has made so far and will make. In the first week, it was reported that it sold 6.5 million copies, which is insane to me. And that number indicates something huge, right? And in the first week, that gives you some context. And here's the thing, right? The first time we heard this game was coming out was the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. And at 25, right? That indicates that the game has been around for a while, and there's been so much once you have the context in that time, right? Because there's been so many spin-offs, so many different ways to express Pokemon out there, and it's all astonishing to me. Overall, I had an absolute blast with Pokemon Legends Arceus. I'm playing Horizon Forbidden West, which is an awesome game, and we're gonna talk about that at some point. And I do have Horizon Zero Dawn. I have a video on that I made too, if you get curious. But you can search my channel, or I can try to remember to leave a link. But my point is, right, while I was building up to that game, I wanted to have something to play, and I've been trying to avoid major games because I got RPG'd out last year. I played way too many RPGs, and they are time consuming, and it takes a lot out of you. But eventually I got so curious about Pokemon Legends Arceus that I figured, hey, will 2 weeks be enough? Yes, it was to play and beat the game and get a lot out of it. And for the record, in that 2 weeks, to give you more context, I spent over 100 hours. Now, to give you further context, I work full time. I also decided that I wanted to go back to school, so because I'm going for like a graduate certificate in intercultural leadership. So that's time consuming too. And in between all that, I found time to play this game, play it a reasonable amount, so that I could get ready and not have to like put it on pause with Horizon Forbidden West, which I'm currently playing. So I had to keep an idea of my schedule and see if I can get away with playing this game or Pokemon Legends Arceus that much, and I was able to pull it off. And that's the other thing that I wanted to like talk about before closing this thing out. Right? There's a lot of math in us, the gamer, right? Because the games cost money. It is not a cheap hobby, right? It's not a cheap passion to follow, right? It's also time-wise speaking, it can be, paced reasonably. It can be short term, but it's usually a long term, time intensive hobby, right? And you got to decide what you want to do with that, because like when you get a game, it's like, well, I'm paying this much for a game. Like if you get something at launch, it's going to cost a pretty penny. Like for Pokemon Legends Arceus, it costs $60. It's like, well, one, do I have set $60, right? Have I set aside the budget for it? And then you have to also consider, do I have the time to play this game, right? If it's something short, like a fighting game, you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll do this bit by bit. With Pokemon Legends Arceus, it's like, okay, I might have gaming sessions where maybe I spend a few hours here, a few hours there, maybe I dedicate like a whole day or two to it, or something. Like if you have the weekend, you have to decide what you want to do and how much you want to get out of it. And then when you were playing a game, it's like, well, what are your goals? Do you want to finish it? Do you want to complete it? Two different things, right? Finish it, you get to the end, you do the main campaign, complete it, you do literally all the tasks that the game is asking you to do. And depending on your desires, right, that dictates to how much more time you're going to spend with that game. And you got to decide what's worth it for you. And if you collect trophies, that might also be the case, though that's not really a thing for Pokemon Legends Arceus, just a thing in gaming. But there's so much that goes into, getting a game, time-wise, money-wise, and also how you're interacting with the game, right? You're using math all the time. You might use it to figure out, if you could beat this opponent or that opponent, sure, but there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that, is in there, right? Because you're doing math every time you use math, every time you're doing resource management, you're saving up money in that game, right? You're spending that. You're deciding what to do, and there's math in all of it, and how you play the game, and how it makes you feel, and it is a beautiful thing. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Professor Prime out.